Hey everyone, it's Carl, and I want to talk about something cool in Savage Worlds, which is mass battles. The whole point of mass battles is to give you the ability to run large kind of set pieces of, alien invasion or two big battles or two big armies going against each other and use some very straightforward mechanics to successfully run that. I used it in a campaign called Vampire Empire, where at some point there was two large vampire armies going against each other. One was allied with humans, which had been on another continent, building up technology, and so this old world, vampire world, and the human world were kind of conflicting, clashing, and so two big armies were going against each other. Very cool. Mass battles added some flair for that, and so I want to talk about what I used exactly out of the book and what I did differently. It's a savage world, strange as a weird war. It's a savage world, classics to explore. Hi everyone, again, Carl with Tabletop Tango. I would love it if you liked or subscribed and subscribed, because we get a number of subscribers. We can do some community tools, and that would be pretty awesome. Not looking to be famous, it just would be cool. Anyway, so let's talk about mass battles and how I used them in a previous campaign. It's a little bit different than what's in the book, but I think it's important to start with what's in the book. And I have some notes, and so I'll go a little bit through those. So basically, how a mass battle is run is each side gets a number of tokens, kind of based on the size of the force, as well as things they mention like is it elite troops or maybe undertrained troops, and that may affect this number of tokens each side gets. So once you've got the number of tokens defined for each side, then you go into what the rounds of combat or of the battle would be, and those can be almost any scale, right? Depending on the kinds of military battle that's going on. It could be fighting is a day, fighting is 2 weeks, whatever it is. And so to get what you need to do from a bonus standpoint for the person who's kind of the leader of the battle, and they use their battle skill to do this, you'd take and I'm looking at my notes here, there's the force bonus where you get a +1 for every token you have above the other army. You can have a +1 to +4 depending on the tactical advantage, how somebody is, the circumstances. Maybe they've got an ambush set up, maybe they're funneling them through a pass in a mountain, so they've got a better way of doing it. And then +1 to +4 for the battle plan. And so that would be kind of, how they're planning on executing their plan, and you may give a bonus because they're being more clever than their opponents. Maybe they're doing a guerrilla warfare and the opponents are just standing up straight and fight. I don't know, something like that, how effective their battle plan is going to be. And so all those get added together. So there's a +1, a +1 to +4, +1 to +4, and those get put together, and then you roll the battle dice of the commander. That battle skill roll happens, and if there's a tie, both sides lose a force. If there's success, there's a marginal victory, and the victor loses 1 force token, the defeated loses 2 tokens. And then finally with the raise, the defeated army loses 2 force tokens. Then, based on that change, you would roll for morale. And so there might be a rout, it might be given up, what have you. In mass battles, then that would seem like the players are out of the loop, but the players really can add to it by doing support rolls to the battle, and that support roll is based on appropriate skill that the players can help define. You think of like a dramatic task where you're trying to come up with the right skill for the situation you're trying to do to add to the success of the battle roll. And if you get a success, you can give a +1, just like any other support row. If you fail, you can get bumps and bruises or wounds. And if you have a critical failure, there's even a table to roll on to see what that effect would be. So that's kind of the overall of mass battles, and you can run them straight that way and kind of get through it. But I think it loses some of the real opportunity for role play, for the players driving the narrative, for battles are huge set pieces and should be, I think should be complicated in the sense that the players are really influencing what goes on, and it's not just, hey, I did a support role. So what I did differently in my vampire game was I I set it up as these two armies are coming together, and the players could recruit, and the players could do a bunch of other tasks and role play to improve. So one of the things I did is I allowed the players to role play out how they were going to affect the battle plan. And so in this case, it was kind of like a montage of efforts, getting ready for the battle. And one of them did some training of troops, and because they had a high fighting skill, they were going to go and train the troops, bring those troops from just average soldiers to somebody who's much more effective. And I allowed that to happen, and we did the roles, we did the role playing. They talked to the commander, they came up with their plan to how to train them. They made their roles. We did kind of a mini dramatic task type thing. And when it all happened and they were successful, they were able to kind of increase the number of tokens they had, because their force is now more elite. I had a character who had medical background, and they wanted to leverage that to teach the medical field hospital folks how to triage better and how to treat the patients better. And that, again, they did a mini task. They proved that they could do it. And then by using their healing knowledge or healing skill, they were able to now, what I believe, to affect the morale. So the morale roll was now affected in a positive way, because I'm losing forces, but there's the doctors are helping the patients, and people are feeling much more ready to keep fighting. And so I used that as sort of the improvement that they got for that effect. There's other examples too. Instead of having like the whole battlefield is just one entity, I allowed the players to come up with plans around splitting their forces to do pincer movements, to do other things like that. And so we ended up with two armies. And one army was protecting a pass and we're setting up to ambush. And the other army was the main force that was trying to, push into their main army. And so we used that as an opportunity to have really two battles going on, where one, they could maybe break through because they had a much better tactical advantage. They had they were fighting from the mountains, and the player then, that commander, they worked with them and increased their battle skill so that they could do a better job in that model of battle. So here were the players kind of at a low level, not just rolling a support role. They were role playing out, interacting with the environment, and helping drive those pluses. So they're getting plus to their tactical role because of the things that they're doing from a role play standpoint. They're getting pluses to their battle plan because they're coming up with great ideas on how to attack the forces by looking at the map and seeing how things are set up, and not just, hey, you came up with a great battle plan. They were actually coming up with battle plans. And so that was pretty cool. And so the player characters, when the battle really started, we didn't do the support roles. So I didn't let the players do just straight battle roles then for support, because we've already established some of those things. What I did instead was then, because this is battles are massive and there's chaos, is we zoomed into things that the players would do specifically as part of the battle to affect the outcome, and not just roll, and if they fail they get wounds. So we had them do a meeting with the commander of the other army, and they sat down and they were having conversations, and they were role playing out what surrender might look like, or what terms they can come to peace, and are they able to negotiate. And that kind of failed, but it gave them a chance to see how their armies was put together as they came in. And with the chivalry, they were not captured, they were allowed to come in and go, and that helped their battle plan. And so they got a benefit because they saw how that army was set up, and what they had, and found out they had legions of catapults and a whole bunch of other things they didn't know about. So that was an example of kind of zooming in and having a bit of an adventure there. They also, towards the end of the battle, when things were going, where their forces were pushing forward, they used subterfuge and stealth and a little bit of luck to kind of sneak back into that encampment and try to take out the commander at a pivotal moment in the combat, so that So there was a combat within this big mass battle that the players were doing very specifically to try to affect the outcome. Because if they would have been able to kill that commander or take him out, then one of the sub-commanders with his battle role would have to be going against them, or their morale would be lower because now if they lose the troops, they don't have that central authority to really push it. So it really could have affected the battle very interestingly. So we zoomed in, role played to get the bonuses and understanding how they were going to help the battle. We zoomed in during the battle to some interesting things that they might be able to do or change the outcome directly. So those were really, those turned into this whole military campaign, turned into a number of sessions, and it was very exciting, and they could feel the pressure of the battle waging all around them, even though they were, they're commanding the troops, and we can see the tokens go down, and they know their forces are being affected, and all that kind of good stuff. Meanwhile, they're driving changes. They're in the back saying, okay, how can we, the troops are down. How do we get a morale up? How do we push that so that we can, increase bonuses of our own? Very cool. So it was very cool. So that's how I did that. Now, one thing I would have done differently that I had originally done is I also kept the units, I had the units placed out. And so, there was vampire, cavalry and footmen, and because the humans came over, there were special forces, and, there was, mobile infantry, autos with, machine guns on them. And so I was going, well, that unit would count as +1, and this unit would count as +2. And then their unit, they had, they had units that had like trolls in it. And so that's going to be +1. And then I used all that, I added together to kind of come up with the number of tokens each side had. That was a lot of work and probably wasn't necessary. I probably could have just said, hey, they've got some really good elite troops. These guys have elite troops. They're kind of like that. Yeah, the vampire army that's coming, which is much bigger, which is part of the reason they were helping defend this other kingdom. Yeah, we're going to give them the 10, and you guys are going to get 8. But you did all these things to increase your capability. Okay, maybe you got 9 now. And so it's a little more even. That would have been so much easier than kind of having this mathematical formula that I put up per unit in their army. So that's how I did mass battles. So mass battles in and of itself, really cool, can be done quickly if you want. I felt like this combat, this battle that was kind of the culmination almost of the campaign, that was a big deal. And so I wanted the players to have a lot of really direct input and really direct role-playing opportunities as they mustered the troops, as they taught, as they got everybody ready and drove. I mean, they were even having discussions with the king vampire and trying to convince him through a social conflict that he should allow them to move troops to the pass so that they can get that advantage there and keep that army from maybe coming through and sneaking from the side. So there was all sorts of really interesting stuff to do with respect to that. And the mass battle roles were just a way of kind of looking at that macro combat that's going on. And all the things the characters did is what really added to those bonuses and affected those roles. So anyway, that is Mass Battles. Again, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. I'd love it if you like and subscribe. Again, not being famous, but boy, would it be cool to see those numbers go up. And we'll catch you next time.
It's a savage world, strange as a wind war. It's a savage world, classics to explore. It's a savage world in the land of the